So did you get something in the meditation? Did you get a mission, something that's particular to you? To what degree are you in alignment with your mission that you received? In the words, Yogi Berra was driving his family to the Hall of Fame. This is a true story. Driving his family to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And lo and behold, Yogi got them lost. And his wife was giving him a hard time about getting lost. So he said, "We're lost, but we're making good time." Have you ever been lost but making good time? I think maybe I have. There's another quote here from Joseph Addison. "When I look upon the tombs of the great, every emotion of envy dies in me. When I read the epitaphs of the beautiful, every inordinate desire goes out. When I meet with the grief of parents upon a tombstone, my heart melts with compassion. When I see the tomb of the parents themselves, I consider the vanity of grieving for those whom we must quickly follow. When I see kings lying side by those who deposed them, when I see the holy men that divided the world with their contests and disputes, I reflect with sorrow and astonishment on the little competitions, factions, and debates of mankind. When I read the several dates of the tombs of some that died yesterday and some 600 years ago, I consider that great day when we shall all of us be contemporaries and make our appearance together." So, not exactly like Yogi Berra there, but he has a point, which is, of course, that it's so easy in the drama of our everyday lives to lose touch with the things that are most important in the long run. So today I'm going to talk about the next habit in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Last time I covered Habit 1. Today I will cover Habit 2, which is begin with the end in mind. And I thought about calling my talk Begin with the End in Mind, but I thought, you know what, there's got to be a more gripping title. And by gripping, I mean ridiculous. So, the title, if you didn't see it in the newsletter, is Let Your Values Drive You Sane. So that's our title. And Covey says that there's many ways to begin with the end in mind, but the most important, the most fundamental way to begin with the end in mind is to begin with an image or picture of the end of your life and how you would like your life to look. The reason he suggests this is because it's so easy to get caught up in an activity trap, working harder and harder, climbing the ladder of success, only to find out that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. There's a lot of people who've worked so hard to make more money or get more prestige in their field, only to find out that there are other things that are more important, things which are now gone and are not coming back. To begin with the end in mind means to make sure that your ladder is leaning against the right wall. The wall that really represents your highest ideals, goals, and values. Or, to quote Yogi Berra again, you've got to be careful if you don't know where you're going, because you might not get there. So, it makes sense, doesn't it? I think it does, yes. There's a big difference between efficiency and effectiveness. We can be very efficient, we can be very busy getting lots of things done, but that does not guarantee that we will be effective. So, in fact, we might be very ineffective depending on exactly what wall our ladder is leaning against. The habit of begin with the end in mind is based on the principle that all things are created twice. So the first creation is the mental creation, the planning stage. And the second creation is the actual physical creation. For example, you wouldn't build a house unless you first had a blueprint for that house, right? And you wouldn't even draw up a blueprint unless you first had an idea of how you want your house to look and how you want it to function, all right? So the house itself is the second creation, and it can only come after the first creation, the mental creation. Same thing if you were starting a new business. Before you can physically have a business, you first have to have a business plan. You have to figure out how all the different elements of the business are going to fit together. The funding of the business, the operations, the advertising, personnel, the physical facilities for the business, and so on. And Covey tells us that many business failures, he says most business failures, begin in the first creation. They begin with poor planning, either through undercapitalization, misunderstanding of the market, or lack of a complete business plan. So, same thing if you're planting a garden. You would first have an image of how you want your garden to look. My wife never plants a thing in her garden until she's plotted out the whole garden on a piece of paper. She knows exactly what the finished product will look like before she puts the first thing in. And Covey tells us that to the extent to which we understand the principle of two creations and take responsibility for both, we expand our circle of influence. We increase the influence that we have in this world. And maybe you're thinking, who wouldn't take responsibility for their first creation? I mean, other than Tim, of course. And but the fact is that most of us are living with some first creations that we did not consciously choose. That they are the product of, they were handed to us, or the product of circumstance. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." And he's talking about that tremendous potential we have when we become aware of all our own first creations and take responsibility for them. Or to put it another way, there's no point in being pessimistic because it probably wouldn't work anyway. Just means the same thing, right? And in fact, we're often not aware that there is a first creation to every part of our lives. So it's important for us to take some time and become aware. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind, is based on principles of personal leadership. And of course, this can mean leadership of other people, but the most fundamental leadership is leadership of self. You can't be a real effective leader of other people until you're first leader for yourself, correct? And so, leadership deals with the first creation. Leadership is not management. Management deals with the second creation. In the words of both Peter Drucker and Warren Bennis, management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. So management can be considered efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. But leadership is making sure the ladder is leaning against the right wall. And he gives a good metaphor to help us understand the difference between management and leadership, both of which are very important, but it's important to understand the difference. So imagine a team of people is carving a path through a dense jungle. In the front of the line are the machete wielders, the ones chopping down the trees and clearing the path. And following behind the machete wielders are the managers. So the managers are sharpening the machetes, they're writing procedure manuals, they're setting up muscle development programs, and they're setting up work schedules, making sure that there's compensation programs for the machete wielders. And the leader of the group, the leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree. He looks all around and he shouts down, "Wrong jungle!" But what do the managers say? They often say, "Shut up, we're making progress." In other words, we're lost, but we're making good time. So, Covey says that we are more in need of a destination, knowing where we're going, and a compass or set of principles and directions to keep us moving towards our destination. And we are less in need of a road map for our lives. Why does he say we're less in need of a road map? Well, a road map would imply that we know exactly where we're going to go in our future, but the future is unknown, isn't it? None of us knows what our future will look like. But if we have a compass, a set of principles and directions, which will always keep us tuned in to our destination, towards the place we know we're going to, we always keep our eyes fixed on that destination, then we can navigate the various obstacles, opportunities, and challenges that come our way on our way to a destination. So, what might our principles be? Well, we do have to take into consideration effectiveness, and effectiveness does not just depend on effort. Effort is usually necessary, but you can be very, very busy working hard, not necessarily be very effective. So, someone said, efficient management without effective leadership is like straightening deck chairs on the Titanic. So yeah, it might make the chairs look neater for now, but is it really going to help the situation in the long run that much? And I don't really think so. But leadership can be hard because we're often stuck in a management paradigm, right? We're taught to manage with efficiency, setting and achieving goals before we've even clarified our values. So one of the things that can happen is we need to write our own scripts, the scripts by which we live our lives. But since a lot of our scripts are scripts that were handed to us, the process of writing our own scripts is actually a process of re-scripting, of shifting our paradigm from one to another, of shifting the way that we see our life from one lens to another lens. And, you know, he has a beautiful example of re-scripting, which comes from the autobiography of Anwar Sadat, past president of Egypt. Sadat had been reared, nurtured, and deeply scripted in a hatred for Israel. He would make this statement on national television: "I will never shake the hand of an Israeli as long as they occupy 1 inch of Arab soil. Never, never, never." And huge crowds all around the country would chant, "Never, never, never." So he marshaled the energy and unified the will of the whole country in that script. The script was very independent and nationalistic and aroused deep emotions in the people. But it was also very foolish, and Sadat knew it. It ignored the perilous, highly interdependent reality of the situation. So he re-scripted himself. It was a process he had learned when he was a young man imprisoned in cell 54, a solitary cell in Cairo Central Prison, as a result of his involvement in a conspiracy plot against King Farouk. And so while he was there, he learned to withdraw from his own mind and look at it to see if the scripts were appropriate and wise. He learned how to vacate his own mind, and through a deep process of meditation, to work with his own scriptures, his own form of prayer, and re-script himself. He records that he was almost loath to leave his prison cell because it was there that he realized that real success is success with self. It's not in having things, but in having mastery, having victory over self. And when the time came when he became president of Egypt and confronted the political realities, he re-scripted himself toward Israel. He opened up one of the most precedent-breaking peace movements in the history of the world, a bold initiative that eventually brought about the Camp David Accord. And by using this re-scripting process, by changing his paradigm, naturally there flowed changes in his behavior and his attitude that affected millions of lives in the wider circle of concern. So, we also, in developing our self-awareness, sometimes discover ineffective scripts, deeply embedded habits that are totally unworthy of us, that are not congruent with the things that we really value the most. For example, in times of high stress, we might become overreactive. It's possible we could say or do things that we don't really mean, or even if we don't do that, it's possible we could do things that don't really reflect consideration of the highest long-term good. So, we get caught up in the thick of thin things, right? To begin with the end in mind means to approach all of our roles in life, including career, but our roles as spouses, parents, community members, all of our roles, to approach all our roles with our values and directions clear. It means to be responsible for our own first creation and to re-script ourselves as needed to make sure that our behavior is congruent with our deepest values. And it also means, yes, it also means to begin each day with those values firmly in mind so that you can be value-driven, so that you can let your values drive you sane. Wait, where have I heard that before? Oh, yeah, that's what's happening right here. What do you know? Oh. So Stephen Covey says that the most effective way he knows to begin with the end in mind is to write your own unique personal mission statement. And now he's not talking about a one-sentence mission statement. These are usually several paragraphs. So I will read you part of a sample mission statement. I will seek to balance career and family as best I can, since both are important to me. My home will be a place where I and my family, friends, and guests find joy, comfort, peace, and happiness. Still, I will seek to create a clean and orderly environment, yet livable and comfortable. I will exercise wisdom in what we choose to eat, read, see, and do at home. I especially want to teach my children to love, to learn, and to laugh, and to work and develop their unique talents. I will be a self-starting individual who exercises initiative in accomplishing my life's goals. I will act on situations and opportunities rather than to be acted upon. I will always try to keep myself free from addictive and destructive habits. I will develop habits that free me from old labels and limits and expand my capabilities and choices. So that's a little more than half of her personal mission statement. And Covey says that our personal mission statement is kind of like a personal constitution, like the United States Constitution, it can give us kind of timeless strength in times of uncertainty, change, ambiguity. The United States Constitution has changed very little in the well over 200 years it's been around. There's been 27 amendments, but 10 of those were the original Bill of Rights, which could be considered part of the original Constitution. So 17 amendments in well over 200 years. It's given our country the stability to weather such changes as the Civil War, Vietnam, Watergate, all kinds of difficulties. And the U.S. Constitution is the standard by which all the laws in this country are evaluated. And in the same way, your mission statement can be, if you wish, the standard by which you make your major life-directing decisions, or you make everyday decisions in the midst of shifting circumstances or changing emotions. When your emotions are changing rapidly, it can be confusing to decide which impulses to act on. So it's important to keep your deepest values and goals directly in front of you. Thomas Jefferson once said, "Our peculiar security is in the possession of a written constitution." And Covey also says that people can't live with change unless there's a changeless core within them. The secret to change is a changeless sense of who you are, what you are about, and what you value. Last time I was here, I talked about Viktor Frankl, and he invented a philosophy, a technique called logotherapy, based on the observation that many people's mental and emotional illnesses are actually caused by a deep sense of meaninglessness in their life, a deep emptiness. So logotherapy helps people find that sense of purpose that inspires them, that sense of mission that also inspires them. And so once they have that sense of mission, the meaninglessness, the emptiness, and all the symptoms that go with it disappear. And that is why we started out with the meditation to find our own sense of mission. Hey, what do you know? There was a reason for it after all, right? Oh, very good. And once you have that sense of mission, you have the core of your own proactivity and the core of your own personal mission statement, so that you can let your values drive you sane. Thank you.